Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
You know how I know? Because I've had raccoons in my house in North Carolina, in my attic, and I know what the scurrying and the I know exactly what it sounds like.
This is the plaintiff, Beth Hurwitz. She says she rented a house from the defendants, and when she went to bed the first night she heard scratching and digging above her head. Turns out the attic was filled with raccoons, a mama and all her babies. They couldn't fix the problem. She got fed up and moved out. Now wants the $3,393.75 she's owed for rent and animal trapper costs. These are the defendants, Jack Kanak and Jennifer Roth. Jennifer says they were handling the raccoon issue, but the plaintiff kept interfering with the trapper and his methods of catching the little babies. They don't owe this woman any money and feel the judge will see things their way when all the evidence is presented to her. They're accused of creating critter chaos.
All parties, please raise your right hand.
What you are about to witness is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in civil court. Both parties have agreed to drop their claims and have their cases settled here before Judge Marilyn Milian in our forum, the People's Court.
Thank you.
People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milian presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay. Ms. Hurwitz, you are suing your former landlords for $3,393.75 because you want your rent, 50% of your rent, to be returned to you that you had paid for months where you had a little bit of a raccoon in the attic problem. Tell me about what happened.
Yes, on January 25th, I wrote to the property manager. I didn't get a response, and so on February 2nd, I wrote again. All in all, Judge, I wrote 32 times about this issue. They hired a trapper in early February who took their check, immediately became sick with COVID. I did not see him again until mid-February, and he was derelict in everything that he did.
How so?
Well, he used a form of musk that should have been completely covering the area of the nesting up in the attic. And instead of going up into the attic, which he didn't do until March 16th, this began January 25th, mind you, he used little Q-tips with the musk down on the ground. So he was not effective at all. He was setting traps outside of the house on the ground and never truly assisted with the issue, and he was belligerent. Aside from that,
how was he belligerent?
He was a bully. He was.
I need facts as opposed to opinion. Tell me what he said or did that made you feel that he was belligerent.
He said right here, "You don't catch nursing mothers. Been doing this 22 years. Never happens."
Okay, that doesn't sound that belligerent of an answer, but okay, your general feel was that he was disdainful and wasn't respectful or whatever else. I'm more concerned over the fact that it's March something, and your first complaint, according to you, was on January 25th. That I am more concerned about. So how is it that when would you hear the activity was it in the attic?
Yes, it was right above my bedroom.
Right. And
yes.
How often would you hear the activity?
Throughout the evening.
So what was it like? Was it scratches? Was it scurrying?
Yes.
I know. You know how I know? Because I've had raccoons in my house in North Carolina, in my attic, and I know what the scurrying and the I know exactly what it sounds like, so I know how unnerving it is. Did you speak with the defendants and bring it to their attention, or were you working through a property manager, or what?
Thank you. I was doing both because the property manager was defunct in their obligation to me to resolve the issue. They used a trapper that was not a professional person, who wasn't following professional practices. On March 21st, I found their address. I sent a letter to them. They seemed to be interested to help me. On April 5th, he said he was going to get a new trapper. That is on text. Didn't hear from him for 3 days. On April 8th, he wrote back again after I inquired and said, you need to go ahead and work with Jason, the property manager. And by April 8th, I was so fed up, I hired my own trapper. They immediately went up there. Keep in mind, on March 16th, the trapper that they hired said that there was no way to access the nest area up in the attic.
So your guy, you paid him $50, he solved the problem.
Yes.
Right. How did he solve the problem? He went in there and physically took out everything that was in there.
Yes, he did. And when the other trapper would have let those animals just die because he excluded the mother.
What was it that your trapper went up there to get? The babies?
Everything. She even went back and she placed a trap for the mother so that she could get the mother. But then the property manager sent me a notice and told me that I was working against their policy and that I had to remove the trap immediately. This is a repair, replacement, cease, desist, and notification. It has come to your attention that you have made the following unauthorized repair or replacement on the premises: unauthorized trapper vendor, traps remaining in place at the property. They literally told me to remove the trap that I paid for, that was to set the trap for the mother to be trapped.
Are these the baby raccoons right by your face?
Yes, that I was so happy and honored that they didn't have to die.
That's great, and that's lovely. I would never put a raccoon by my face.
Not even close.
I was
a little bit concerned.
Yep.
But, all right, Mr. Knake and Ms. Roth, let me hear from you folks. Who wants to speak first?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So the plaintiff did contact our property manager on January 25th via email, but the email went into spam. I mean, the property manager never got the email. So the tenant called the property manager a few days later on January 28th.
Right, but I'm more concerned. Let's give away those 3 days. Then from January 28th, which is the phone call, until we're well into April and the problem isn't solved. I know that it takes a bit to solve the problem, but that's a lot of months living with.
She didn't describe the.
Well, perhaps she's not as descriptive as I am, but she was complaining a lot because there's 32 emails and texts that that there's something up there and that the noise is bothering her.
Hey, I understand. The noises that you described were scratching because the ceiling above her room where these supposed raccoons are is a vaulted ceiling. It's not a regular attic where they could run around. That's why it comes down to that it was inaccessible to get at from the attic.
How did her person do it?
Okay, so her person, our trapper is 6'4", 280 pounds.
Why would you hire a trapper who's 6'4", 280 pounds? Because that guy isn't getting in the attic. It's like a jockey. You got to hire a jockey. Got to hire a small, wiry, wily fellow to get in there, or woman, whoever, whatever it is. But you got to get somebody who can get in there. But 6'4", 280 pounds.
It's not going to work.
No. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, this professional trapper has been doing this for over 20 years. This is the property managers, the trapper that they use all the time, their first go-to. At this point, he didn't, or we, or they didn't think they even had to go into the attic. There are other methods to get the mama raccoon out, and then when she finally had babies, there was other methods to get that out, and that's what he was doing.
I understand, but where do we put the fact that he was doing that for February, March, April, That's a long time to be, quote, doing it. And I understand I'm going to take 3 days out for the wrong email. I'm going to take 2 weeks out for COVID. But it's still such a long time to solve the problem. What do I do with that? I mean, she's asking for 50% rent. I know why she's asking for that. You guys decided that she was a headache and you didn't want to keep renting to her, or you decided to move back. Either way, it's your property. You get to decide that. And she's angry she didn't get to stay there. I'm not stupid. I see through that. But by the same token, I am someone who's aware that that noise is annoying. And I know it annoyed her because she was constantly speaking to your property managers, sending texts, sending emails. In other words, Ms. Roth, if it were your trapper who you hired and it's 3.5 months and he hasn't solved it, at some point, don't you think you're not getting what you paid for?
We did get involved, absolutely. And she was interfering in the process.
Okay, talk to me about that.
Okay, so in his statement that the trapper gave, he talked about how she had interfered. She was road blocking. She would go down.
What's road blocking?
In his terms, that he would explain to her how he wanted to do his process, and she would say, "No, you can't do that. No, you can't do this." So we were. So I think I thought there was a lot of communication between all of them, and that they were helping. And we, warranted her a place to have habitability, but we never warranted that a wild animal wouldn't get in there. So we took immediate action.
Listen, I have no qualms with the fact that you took action. In other words, I don't think you sat around saying, "Oh, the hell with her." That didn't happen. No one's suggesting that happened. The problem is if the action isn't effective, who's that on? And if it disrupts her quiet and peaceful enjoyment of the place, then is she entitled to something? And you're right. Habitability is the standard. Wild animals can get in there. If she was like, "I want all my rent back. I'm not paying rent because there's a wild animal," I would tell her she's nuts. But that's not what she's saying. She, in my opinion, she's asking for too much, but still she wants some rent back because of a breach of the warranty of habitability, because it's maddening to have animals living in your home with you. You did not sign up for, housemates.
And then there is the feces and the urine that I had to be exposed to as well.
How were you exposed to feces and urine?
Through breathing the smell of it. They never once went up there and cleared any of that stuff out, even after they sealed the area. I took a picture of the ceiling and you could see where the paint was flaking down from there.
What do you suppose is causing the paint to flake down from the ceiling?
Well, I don't know, other than there was a lot of digging and scratching and nesting. And actually, please, when it comes to what it sounded like, it wasn't little raccoons scurrying around the attic. All of the batting from the insulation was torn away and loaded up to create a nesting area up there.
Do you have pictures of that?
I do not, but I saw it with my own eyes.
Tell me about your attempt to extend the lease. Because it was, your argument here today is it was unlivable, Judge, so I should get some money back. But we know that you tried to extend the lease to live there.
Yes.
Right. So talk to me about that.
Because there are no rentals in St. Augustine, and that was not a happy place for me.
Okay.
That entire housing development house that I lived in was not a pleasant place because of what took place there with the raccoon.
So why were you trying to extend the lease?
If there's no other rentals to be had, then what am I going to do but
So
ask
what
on
did
my
you
own
end
behalf?
up doing?
I was very lucky. I'm a minister. And I found a bride who hired me for her wedding, and they literally gave me the house that they moved out of to rent, so that they could move into their new home. And that's how lucky I am. And you see the things that I've just moved into this house behind me that have yet to be unwrapped. I was very, very, very lucky.
Okay. So here's where we are. We have a situation. You agree with me, Mr. Kinnick and Ms. Roth, that it really took a long time and it still wasn't even fixed. Do you not agree with me that that was inordinate?
It took a while, but our trapper was professional, and we have the emails saying that he was in the process of doing all this.
Yeah, but listen, has this ever happened to you? Have you ever had to trap wildlife in the house?
No, ma'am.
I have twice had to deal with this problem, and It is maddening, but it doesn't take 3 months. It doesn't. It takes a bit. It's not snap your fingers. It might take a week, 2 weeks. It depends on where they are, if they have access, if they don't have access. It depends on, whether they make sure to trap all the holes so that there's no other way for the animal to get out except for this way. It's art. There's an art and a science to it, and it takes a bit, but it doesn't take 3 months. And I don't know if the trapper just didn't like her attitude, or I know she didn't like the trapper's attitude, but I'm working on it for 3 months is ineffective. Under any ruler, it's ineffective. The question is, what is that worth? Well, certainly it's worth the $50 she had to pay her trapper to get it done. That's for darn sure. And then is there a value to the inconvenience of having to live through that for an additional several months that one should not have to live through that? I think there is. Is it 50% rent? No. It's not 50% rent. So I'm going to award her. So March, April, and May, I'm going to add $200 to her recovery, and I'm going to order the defendants to pay her $650 for the issue and the trouble. That is my verdict. Good luck, folks.
So the plaintiff prevails. I'm not sure she's going to be too happy with it. She only gets $650. She was suing for $3,300. Let's talk to the defendants first. What do you feel about the decision, ma'am? You got to give her $650 back.
No, we're compassionate with what we had to go through. And we also did have a trapper there, and there was a lot more involved than we were able to express this during this session.
But you agree with the judge, that was a kind of a long time for her to have to put up with that noise, right?
Yeah, well, it wasn't put up once the raccoons were removed on April 8th. It only comes out to be about 10 weeks or whatever.
10 weeks? That's a long time.
No, I understand, but we had somebody working on it.
Let's see what Ms. Hurwitz feels about now. She prevailed, but Ms. Hurwitz, the judge says you're going to get $650. How do you feel about that?
I feel that it was very wrong for the judge to be rude.
My question is, what do you feel about the judge awarding you $650? You were suing for $3,300.
I feel disrespected. I have felt that way since the beginning of this time, and I would have thought that a woman of her caliber would have understood what I went through.
All right, you're a little upset with the judge. That's okay. You're entitled to do that. But in any event, you did prevail, and you got $650 back. All right, let's get Harvey's take on this case. Harvey, what do you think?
Doug, the plaintiff mentioned a warranty of habitability. That is implied in almost all leases. And what it means is that you have a legal right to a place that is habitable, free of safety and health concerns. In a situation like this, you could argue that both health and safety are compromised with wild animals in the attic. But bottom line is that this warranty of habitability protects tenants from danger inside the house, and it's something you can enforce even if it's not in the contract.
Which pinball games does Judge John have, and does he have a favorite?
Pinball is one of my favorite topics, okay? I'm not going to lie. I have, much to my wife's dismay, like 7 games now, don't I? I have a bunch. I've got Spider-Man, Pirates of the Caribbean, Lost in Space, South Park, Scared Stiff.
That's the newest one, right?
It's the newest edition. Elvira's House of Horrors, and The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Which is my favorite.
That's
now,
your favorite.
Scared Stiff, you came home from golfing with your brothers.
Right.
Which were, a 4-day trip.
Right.
And then you said to me, hey, will you get in a car with me and pick up, I have to swap pinball machines. I'm like, what?
Right.
Yeah, I got to go to Atlanta and swap pinball machines.
A lot of people want to trade straight up. They don't want to sell the games because they have a game, they get a little tired of it.
It's 10 hours to Atlanta.
Yeah, that's about that. Yeah,
right.
Get into your body's vitals with the Vitals app on Apple Watch.
I wanna get into my body and let my skin do the talking. I wanna feel like I'm myself again.
The Vitals app tracks key overnight metrics so you can spot changes in your health before you feel them. The Vitals app on Apple Watch. iPhone XS or later required. The Vitals app is for wellness purposes only and not for medical use.
I wanna get into my body.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
This is the plaintiff, Manuel Montero. He says he gave the defendant a deposit on some kitchen cabinets she was selling. And when he went to her house to remove them, she and her husband refused and kicked him out. He doesn't know what kind of scam the defendant's trying to pull because she won't return his money, and he's suing for the $600 he's owed. This is the defendant, Darlene Troisi. She says the plaintiff and her husband exchanged some words in their kitchen, and the plaintiff told her he no longer wanted the cabinets and demanded a refund. The cops were called. They told this guy to shut his mouth, and then they made him leave. The plaintiff changed his mind, therefore is not entitled to a refund. She's accused of being kitschy.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says that he bought some kitchen cabinets from the defendant, but she will not let him pick them up. Now, the defendant says the plaintiff's a hothead who had words with her husband and now deals off. It's the case of being kitschy.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Montero, you are suing Ms. Troisi for the return of a $600 deposit on $1,200 of cabinets. Was the whole thing going to be 12?
Yes.
Okay. Because according to you, she breached the contract. Tell me what happened.
I saw those kitchen cabinets in the granite countertop on the Facebook, and we like them. And then we sent her a message. She was asked, I think, $1,500, and I asked her if she can do it 12, and then she said, yes, I would do 12.
Okay, so you send a $600 deposit, you schedule a pickup date. Tell me about the scheduling of the pickup date.
The pickup date, and she told me she can never give me the kitchen cabinet after Easter, which is April 4th.
She can't give it to you until after Easter.
Yes.
Okay, so you guys pick out your date, you figure it out, you go over there to pick it up, and what happens?
We call her, and I tell her we are outside. And then about 3-4 minutes, and then she said, okay, you guys can come in. And then we walk inside. When we walk inside, she was not there. His husband was there. The husband started swear with the F words.
F words?
Yeah.
Why?
What happened when I went inside the house, the husband transformed it, changed for completed. And then it was
The husband what? Transformed? He changed completely.
And then they started calling
Transformed himself from what? You never met the guy before. You don't know how he is.
No, I never met him before.
Right. So what do you mean by transformed himself?
Because he said, oh, you got the money? You got the money? And then I told him, yes, I have the money. And then I told him, you should remove the appliance. And then okay, I'm not going to do this stuff. I'm not going to help you do any of those things. And then they started calling names. It transformed. You get very upset.
Okay, now you were under the impression that the appliances were going to have been what? Disconnected or removed?
All disconnected. We agreed.
Right. So if you had agreed that they'd be disconnected, were they not disconnected?
Not disconnected. The appliance was still in there, connect the microwave. His husband tried to get a screwdriver to go disconnect, and then he started throw his mouth with a lot of F words. And I said, I don't understand.
Was it directed at you, or was it directed at the job he had to do? What was it directed at? The F bombs?
I think I'll probably say it started due to the job where he tried to do to remove the microwave, and then fortunately he gets so loud. His wife coming down from upstairs and say, "Oh, you guys get out of here! Get out!"
To who? To you or to him?
3 people. We are 3 people. It's me and my stepdaughter and my girlfriend.
How old is your stepdaughter?
She's 15.
Okay. So according to you, she breaches because the appliances are not disconnected, and that was the deal, and she throws you out, and he's calling you the F word. According to you, Ms. Troisi, what happened?
We had an arrangement for him to pick up the cabinets after Easter, and I explained to him, the cabinets are heavy, do you have help? He said, yes, I do. I have a truck with a tailgate. I said, that's good. He said, I'm a plumber. I can disconnect them myself. And I said to him,
I'm a plumber. I can disconnect what myself?
The appliances. But I didn't want him to anyway.
Well, that's fine. So I do see a text where you say you will be disconnecting the appliances. So
yes,
what happened? Did you disconnect the appliances?
Everything was disconnected except for the microwave. When he came in the house, when my husband was taking it down, and my husband said to him, can you please just hold the side of it? I can't take the whole thing down by myself. I had explained to him that my husband was in an accident and he couldn't do everything and he couldn't help him a lot. So my husband asked him.
Well, that's not his job. It's his job to have the tools to take the cabinets out and take the granite out and everything else. That's totally on him, and he has no right to expect your husband to help. But I guess your husband, who was supposed to have disconnected, or somebody, your plumber, whoever, your handyman, whoever was supposed to have disconnected the appliance, didn't get to their job and didn't do it. So he does have to help your husband, right?
So it was one item that my husband asked him to hold the corner of, to put down, to get up.
And what did he say? What did Mr. Montero say?
As far as my husband told me, he refused, and they had words, and that's
what were the words they had? Did your husband ever tell you what the words were?
I didn't hear much, but him yelling at my husband and them arguing with each other, and I came down the stairs.
What were they saying when they argued with each other?
My husband said he was saying, I'm not taking the cabinets, I don't want the cabinets, and by the time I came down the stairs, he was screaming and yelling at my husband, and I asked him to leave. And he walked out, and he called me from outside, and he said, I would like my money back. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't think that's right. So he said, I'm calling the police. I said, okay.
What'd you tell the officer?
I told him that I came down the stairs, and he was arguing with my husband, and I asked him to leave. I heard
because
him
you made the
yelling,
conclusion that you weren't going to return his money, so I presume you tried to get to the bottom of what happened when you had the hubris to go into your bedroom. Apparently, you can't do that without all that testosterone batting back and forth and ruining your gig. You had sold this stuff and you needed it out because you had demolitioners coming the next day, right? Like you were on a schedule to do your remodeling. Everything is taken care of. All of a sudden, you come down and it all goes to crap in what, 2 minutes that you're upstairs, right?
Yeah.
Let me hear from your husband. Is your husband there?
Yes. Can you hold on one second,
Sure,
please?
darling.
Robert? Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Can you raise your right hand, please?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. What's your name?
Robert Troisi.
Okay. Mr. Troisi, what happened between you and the plaintiff here?
He came in, and I asked him if he could hold a microwave because I had just had a
start
knee
from the
replacement
very
surgery.
beginning. He comes in, and who says what to who?
I asked him to hold. He complained because the microwave was still on the wall. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, I was in the process of taking it down. And I asked him if he could hold the bottom of it because I just had knee replacement surgery and I was up on a stool. And he refused to do it. And then he said he didn't want the cabinet. I had asked him a number of times for the money up front, the money that he owed us.
When you say I had asked him, you had asked him when?
When he was in the house.
Oh, okay. All right. You said what exactly?
I said, you owe us more money, and I expect you to pay it.
And he said?
And he didn't say anything really. He said, I'm not going to pay. I asked him to hold the end of the bottom of the microwave, and he refused to do it.
And then you said?
I said, I'm not going to be able to do it.
Do you think that's his job, though, putting aside whether this is the most ridiculous display of batting testosterone that I've ever seen, because everyone needs these stupid cabinets out. You got a guy there who's going to give you another $600. You're going to get $1,200 for cabinet. Whenever I do anything like this, I got to pay somebody to take my cabinets and granite. But you're getting to it. I mean, this is like the perfect gig. What went wrong, really? I know what Mr. Monteiro thinks went wrong. Mr. Monteiro, what do you think went wrong?
It's the bad word that man was trying to give it to us.
Okay, but no, why don't you call this what you called it in the complaint? You think that he's a racist because he saw you when you were black. That's what you say happened.
That's correct.
Okay.
What does every USAA member have in common? Family. We're one big family who supports the military community and their eligible families. And if you, your parent, or spouse served, you could join our family and save big on auto insurance. Visit USAA.com/join today to check your eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Welcome back to the People's Court. The plaintiff says the defendant's running a scam and he wants his money. The defendant is saying, the plaintiff just changed his mind and she's not giving up any refunds. Let's go back into the courtroom.
Now, Mr. Troisi, did anything come up of a racist nature between you and this gentleman?
Absolutely not, Your Honor.
Okay, so how did you ask him to help you with the microwave? Because the truth is that he is not there to disconnect microwaves. How did it come about? That's what I'm trying to understand.
I simply explained to him that I just recently had knee replacement surgery, and there was no way that I was going to be able to hold up the microwave at that time.
Okay, and why wasn't this done before now?
I was in the process of doing it.
Yeah, I know they were. That wasn't my question. Why hadn't that already been done so that he can go boom, 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 take out the cabinets, take out the granite, and get out of your life and pay you another $600? How many times had your wife asked you to do it?
She didn't ask me to do it.
Okay, well, how did you expect to? So why wasn't that done before the guy was there to pick it up?
I didn't know that it had to be done, Your Honor.
You expected him to do it?
No, I didn't expect. I asked him simply to hold up the bottom.
Okay, we're just going in circles. Mr. Monteiro, you said you wanted to put some witnesses on as well.
Yes.
Can I speak to your daughter? Raise your right hand, honey.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. What happened there? Were you with them when they walked into the house?
Yes.
So what do you think happened?
So we called, and then he said, I'm going to put the dogs outside. His wife was upstairs, and then we went inside, and we were just looking. We liked it. And then he said, okay, I have to remove the microwave. And then he went to go grab a screwdriver. And then he was like, oh, I can't do anything. I think because he said he got knee surgery. And then he was like, he said an F word when trying to remove it. And then, hold on, a little shaky.
Go ahead. I know what the F word is. Don't worry. And then what?
And then he went over there, and then he was like, oh, do you have the $600? And then my dad didn't respond. And then I said, yes, my mom's going to grab it. And then he went over there, and he repeated, I can't help you, like 3 times. And then right when my mom went outside, and then my dad and me and most of my mom's brother, we went near the door. And then my dad was like, oh, the microwave should have been removed. And then he was like, I understand that, very loudly. And then when my mom came inside, and then they started he was just yelling, and my dad said,
what was he yelling? That's the part I don't want to skip over that everybody seems to skip over. What was he yelling?
He was like, I understand that. I'm getting it removed. And then my dad was like, oh, I'm not here for that. I'm not here to argue. And then his wife was like, oh. And she came downstairs, and she was like, get out.
Okay. Did you ever hear him, your dad say, I don't want the cabinets?
After that, he said he doesn't want it. But he said he asked my dad to remove the microwave. He did not.
Okay. So what do you think the fight was about then? If it wasn't about that, why were they fighting?
Because my dad said the microwave should have been removed. And then he was like, I understand that, very loud. And then
wow.
He weren't there to have a disagreement. He was just there to pick up the cabinets.
Okay. So but when she says get out, had your father before that said, I don't want the cabinets?
Right when he said, oh, I understand. And then he said, you know what, I don't want that. And then his wife came downstairs and heard them saying that. And she's like, hey. And then she said, get out. You're already getting out.
All right. I got it. Let me speak to Darlene, please.
Okay.
Thank you. So who breached then? That's really the question. He is trying to get his $600 back because he's saying you breached because there were not only was an appliance there, but that it wasn't like an apology that the appliance was still connected. It was I understand that, according to him. But is there any doubt that the microwave shouldn't have been connected at that time? I mean, nobody's going to give you the rest of the money until you remove the microwave. So how do you figure he breached when you still hadn't taken the appliances off?
There was one appliance that my husband was in the process of removing.
And asking him to help. And then he didn't like how your husband was talking to him, and your husband didn't like how he was talking to him, and then it's F this, F that. Because quien es más macho, right?
I guess. I don't exactly know what you're saying, but I guess.
That was a skit on Saturday Night Live, quien es más macho? Who is more Ricardo Montalban es más macho? That was a skit on Saturday Night Live in the 70s and the 80s. You were around in the 70s and the 80s, right?
Oh, yes, I was. I just don't remember that.
Okay.
I don't.
Well, it's a saying that means everybody's just a little too overly testosterone. Like everybody's just, you know, kind of, I don't know. I can't help but feel that if you were downstairs, this wouldn't have happened. That's just how I feel.
It's possible.
I know. And then, you know, you'd have $1,200 on your side, the kitchen out of there, and a lot less aggravation if you had been down there. And if you had made him remove the microwave beforehand.
Yeah. I didn't, you know, it's not anything I wanted to be, I didn't want this to happen.
No,
I mean,
in fact, what happened? Yeah. Why did you tell him to get out?
Because they were yelling, and I didn't want anything to happen.
But you still don't know, you can't discern for me who was yelling what at who.
I can't say exactly, and I'm not going to say something I can't remember exactly.
And do you remember anything your husband said?
I remember him saying, can you just hold the end of the microwave? Yeah. That's all I remember.
Yeah. Well, there's two ways to do that. There's, oh, it's so nice to meet you, shaking his hand and saying, so you guys are remodeling? Oh, that's great. Yeah, we are too. Wow, what a headache. So listen, I need to take this down. Do you think you could help me out? And there's another. Hold the other side of that microwave. I don't know which one of those it was, but clearly something in the tone of these two gentlemen with each other did not work out. And then you got stuck with a kitchen that was attached, and you probably had to pay people to get that out, right? How much did you have to pay to get, and did that delay your project?
Different amounts for different things, and the kitchen is still not done, and hopefully it'll be done by the fall.
Ms. Tracy, you're really going to hate this. Based on what I have heard, I am ordering you to return the $600 to the plaintiff, because even though I am not a fly on that wall or a tape recorder, and I can't actually know in my heart of hearts what was said by anybody, I have to just look at what both sides agree on, which is, there's a text where you say that, you know, he's just going to be removing the cabinets and the granite, and he gets to that house and both sides agree that one of the appliances wasn't removed, and both sides agree that your husband is expecting the guy to help him do that. If I have to find where a breach happened, that's where a breach happened. Ergo, you have to give the guy his money back. $600 verdict for the plaintiff.
So the plaintiff prevails and is going to get his $600 back. Ms. Tracy, I can't believe you're surprised at the judge's decision, are you?
I guess, it's not something I've done before, and I guess
You're going to have a chat with your husband about this? What do you think he's going to say?
We'll probably have a conversation about when will this kitchen be done, and all of this stuff will be over.
Okay. Well, sorry. You got to give the plaintiff his deposit back, the $600. That's the judge's decision. Mr. Montero, how do you feel about this? You feel vindicated, right?
Yeah, I feel great, and I think she did a decent job. Another thing I have to clear is that if I went to your house, you already removed the microwave, and you tell me, can you help me please remove the microwave? I would be glad to do it. You know what I mean? But that's not the case. His face transformed for completing. And they started with the F word, like he's going to remove the microwave. I tried to be nice with him, but it's such a point I feel I was not safe for me and my family, so I have to leave.
Well, you made the right decision. Congratulations, you're going to get your money back. All right, Harvey, what are you thinking?
Doug, this was kind of an issue of timing that these cabinets were not ready for removal when the plaintiff came by. Timing is really important in contracts like this. And I'm going to give you the magic words. We've talked about this before, but the magic words are time is of the essence. If you write that in the deal, that means the date that says things have to be ready and delivered, that date sticks.
Harvey, my neighbor's dog, was staying at my house for a couple of weeks while they were on vacation. While I was in the backyard with the neighbor's dog and my dog, Harvey got spooked by a passerby and suddenly attacked my dog. Who is responsible for my dog's vet bill?
There's what's legally the responsibility of someone, and there's what's right or wrong. And sometimes they're not exactly the
Manners,
same thing.
right?
Right. Now, this situation comes like out of, chapter 1, verse 1 of no good deed goes unpunished. I got to tell you, if I'm the neighbor who owns Harvey, I'm paying.
Well, I know, and I think that there would be no question that that's what you or I would do.
That's the right thing to do.
That's the right thing to do. Now, let's talk about the legal thing to do.
Now, if it's in court.
Right, and every state has different laws about the responsibility of a dog owner towards their dog. Some states are strict liability, and it's just your dog bites another dog, you pay.
Take out your checkbook.
Take out your checkbook.
Right.
So, assuming that you live in one of those states, the answer is easy. But if you don't live in one of those states, then the argument is, hey, I wasn't in charge of my dog. You were in charge of my dog.
Right.
So you were supposed to be making sure that the dogs all got along right. And, as I always tell my litigants, the law doesn't punish dogs for being dogs. It punishes humans, for their conduct. In strict liability states, it punishes you for being the owner of the dog that bit.
Right.
And that's that. It makes it nice, clean, and simple. In states that don't have strict liability, it's who was supervising the dogs and were they supervising them adequately to keep them from hurting each other.
Right. But again, also going back, the right thing to do, Harvey's should probably pay.
Yeah, that's what I would do
Just pay
if I was
that
Harvey's.
All right, here we go.
New Phineas and Ferb is here.
We're back, baby.
For 104 more days.
I know what we're gonna do today.
Of summer vacation.
I am ready for summer shenanigans. Let's do it. Oh, yeah.
All right. We're gonna bust Phineas and Ferb once and for all.
Are we gonna do this again?
New inventions, shenanigans, innators, adventures, and songs.
Brand new summer vacation.
New Phineas and Ferb starts June 5th on Disney Channel and next day on Disney Plus. On DisneyPlus.Disney.com.